This episode was previously recorded in front of an imaginary studio audience.
Time for fun, Knife Friday!
Alright, hi all you knife chatters out there, your old pal Skip the Show coming back at you again today. Happy Fun Knife Friday! I know I really haven't been here for a bit, and I don't know if I should be here today or not. Anyway, I was struggling looking for a knife to have some fun with, and I just kept looking around and couldn't find one, and then I saw this one hanging over by Tobias's workbench. And I think you all have probably seen this behind him a couple times, and he never talks about it. This is like one of them V-42 stilettos from World War II, but it's not a real V-42 stiletto from World War II. It's a replica. And I guess that's why he hasn't bothered to talk about it, because, well, it's a replica, and he likes to talk about real knives, not fake knives. But if he bought it, then why did he buy it? I think he said he bought it as a placeholder until he could get a real V-42, but he basically doesn't feel like, what did he say? He's not going to mortgage his home, so he's waiting to win the lottery so that he can buy a real one. Because a real one from World War II would cost well into the thousands of dollars. Now, for some people, dropping $1,000 on a knife is nothing. For most people, dropping $1,000 on a knife is a divorce. Yeah. Or if nothing else, it's going starving for a long time. Because a lot of people don't have that kind of money to drop on a knife. So that's probably why he got this one instead, and I think it looks pretty cool. I know what you've been waiting for. You've been waiting to see me take this dagger and stick it in my knife. Now I know what you've been looking for. You're waiting for me to take this out of the sheath. Big old long sheath. Ooh, look at that long sheath. And take this double-edged blade on this stiletto and just bite it between my teeth. You know what? Mama didn't raise no fool. I am not going to take a sharp-edged blade on both sides and stick it in my mouth. There. That's as close as you're going to get. Now, let's get this puppy out of the sheath and take a look at it. And we'll also take a look at the sheath a little bit. But yeah. That's what you wanted to see, right? Look at that. Would you want that come poking at you? Is that not a pretty knife? Yeah. Somebody's got this thing going around about ugly knives. Well, I like to look at pretty knives, and this is definitely a pretty knife. And now, you look at it also, and you go, well, that looks like one of them British commando daggers. And I got a reason to think that, too. And that reason is where this knife came from. This knife was designed by a group of Army officers, both Canadian and American, in the 1st Special Service Force back in World War II. Now, this is a group of Canadians and Americans who decided, you know what, let's go off and fight a war, kill some Nazis and stuff. And somebody said, well, we need a knife. Like, there's dozens of knives out there, but it's like, no, we need our knife. So they came up with this plan to come up with a knife, and this is the knife they ended up settling on. Now, some people say that the knife was designed by by the commander of the group, some guy named Colonel Robert T. Frederick. Frederick, yeah. I wonder if Robert T. Frederick became Fredericks of Hollywood. Then he would be a designer of sorts, right? Anyway, he was not the guy who designed the knife. My feeling is they say it was a kind of a mishmash of all the officers coming together and coming up with the design. I got a feeling the guy who did most of the designing on this knife was this Canadian fella, a Canadian commando dude, named Dermot Michael Pat O'Neill. And the reason I think that is because, well, number one, he was a Canadian commando, And number two, one of the things he was doing with the unit is he was teaching them how to knife fight. Now, you're thinking, commando dagger, yeah, he probably knew how to fight with something like this. And apparently he was also one of them Shanghai police force guys too, just like the Fairbairn and Sykes guys and all that other stuff, who already knew about these knives too. So I got a feeling he had probably the most influence on the design of the knife. But when time came to picking the knife, they got these prototypes from 3 different companies. There's like Camillus and Cattaraugus and then Case. And I guess Colonel Fredericks must have had some stock in Case or something, because he said, I like the Case one. We're going with the Case one. So he made the final decision on what knife they were going to use. And this is basically what it looked like. Now, like I said, this is not an original. This is not a Case V42 stiletto. It is not one of the Case V42 stilettos that was made after the war. This is one made by Windlass Cutlery. And now this one was made, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And at the time, Windlass was saying that the blade steel in this was 1095 carbon steel, which was the same steel that was used in the original V42, and it has a blued finish, and it definitely has a blued finish, and it looks really great. It also has 2 sharpened edges here, and they are sharp enough to cut. I wouldn't call them razor sharp, and it is definitely very pointy. Am I going to be trying to do what they claim this knife can do, which is shove it through an M1 helmet all the way through the steel pot and through the nylon and into a skull? No, because quite frankly, you might be able to do it with the knife, but you probably only be able to do it once without damaging the blade. That's my thought. But it's got many of the things on here that really fit the original V42. If you can feel it here or see it right there, probably can a little bit. See that? That is the thumbprint. That is so you can index your thumb when you're fighting. You know, feels very uncomfortable to me, but that's what it's there for, so you know where the blade is, what shape, what size, you know, the pointy side and the cutting side and everything else. That's what it's for. You can also kind of figure that out from the guard, though, can't you? Anyway, the other thing you see here is you got these flappy pieces of leather there. Now, a lot of the inexpensive copies of the V42 forget about this part. But that is actually part of the knife. They would have the leather there, and that was so that you don't slam into the guard and everything. And it also keeps it a little quieter and stuff like that. And then it was supposed to be a stacked leather handle. This has a leather handle all the way through, but this looks like it is wrapped around there. And then you got the mean, nasty thing at the top there. Now, I don't know if they called it a skull crusher back then, or if they later started calling it a skull crusher or anything else. But that is really there so you can hit down on something, and you got a precise point there. So you could use it for breaking glass. You could also use it for doing some damage when you hit somebody. Now, I read accounts that this point here was so sharp on some of the original ones that they would actually file it down because they would accidentally graze a hand with this thing, and it would cut. That's how pointy that was. I don't know if that's true or not. I also read that the point on these things was so pointy that when you poke somebody or stab somebody with it and you hit bone or something, that the point would actually get stuck in the bone and it was hard to pull it out. And so what they would end up doing is blunting the tip a bit so that it wouldn't happen. Now, that's not the case, at least according to Case. Case said that the reason you'll find blunted tips on these is because each one of the knives was handmade and hand ground, and so every tip was a little bit different, so you're not going to find the same tip on every knife. So I guess way back in World War II, Case admitted that they had quality control issues. Alright, lame joke, but yeah. But that is the case. You know, if you're going to hand grind every knife, the tip is not going to be the same on every knife, especially in the middle of a war. And these things were made in 1942, 43, 44, something like that. I think Case made them like on 3 different occasions. The only people who used them, from what I understand, was the First Special Service Force, and also the Marine Raiders used them. The Marine Raiders not so much as the Special Force group. Anyway, I should just call them the Red Devils, because that would be a lot easier for me. Just call them the Red Devils. Yeah, so the devils and baggy pants and all that other stuff that they were known. No, that was just the airborne. Like to be a chairborne ranger. Oh, never mind. Where was I? Oh, I was at the Volcano Club. Welcome to the Volcano Club. Oh, no, we're past that point. Anyway, this I think is a pretty good facsimile of the original Case V42. But like I said, this is made by Windlass Cutlery, and it was made in India. There's a couple other companies that make them, and these will usually run you around $80, $90, as opposed to the Case repops from the 80s and 90s and stuff, which are going into right around $1,000. And if you try and get one from World War II, which are really, really difficult to find, they're going to be well over $1,000 unless you are extremely lucky. And I know somebody's going to come now and say, I got one of these I got an original World War II Case V42 stiletto. I found it at a flea market for $5. Yeah, go ahead and tell me that. I don't believe a word you're saying. Because if the person has it, they're not going to sell it to you for $5. And if you did get it for $5, you probably just ripped off a widow who could have really used that money. So you're a scumbag. All right? Anyway, let's talk about the sheath. The sheath looks a lot like the sheath for the M6. Or the M6 scabbard used for the M3 trench knife. Got the same kind of riveting down the side. It does not have the metal protector on the bottom. And then it had those goofy staples across the top so that the knife would not cut into the top of the throat of the sheath. And it has an extra long dangler part there. I wonder if they're trying to one of those things where they're trying to make up for something. Anyway, knife goes in like so. You got the snap there. Yeah, come on, let's snap. Maybe if I didn't wear my glasses. Can only imagine trying to snap it when it's hanging from your leg. And then you got the long dangly part. You got the hole up on the top for hanging it there. This one looks pretty good. It's a better quality leather than what you find on the Colt one. But then again, I guess Marbles made them too, or somebody. I don't know. The cheaper one that doesn't have the leather going across here has a dangly sheath like this too, but it's made of some kind of pleather. This is actual leather. I wouldn't say it's the top grain leather or anything like that, but for leather coming out of India, it's pretty dang good. And it's about the way the original sheath was made. Now, the Marine Raiders, I guess they didn't need to compensate as much because their sheaths were not as long. They cut them down a bit, made them a little shorter, made them a little more practical for the Marines. Now, the reason this is so long is because them First Special Service Force guys, they were wearing this all the time, and it was hung off of the waist belt of their pants. And they're wearing the jump uniform that the Army was using. So the whole purpose of this being as long as it was is so that the knife would hang below the blouse when they're wearing it. And yeah, it does mean that that knife is all the way down by their down by their knee at the bottom there. But also know that they also cut down the sheaths too, and then they also they just tied them to their legs and stuff like that. We're talking about special forces guys. They wore their knife wherever they wanted to wear their knife. But that was the design focus of it. It was so that it would hang off of your uniform belt, not off of your web gear. So you would have the belt, you'd have the knife on you even when you took off your gear. So that was the idea of it. And just a nice looking knife. You gotta admit that. This is no ugly knife. It's a beautiful little stiletto. And 7-inch blade, 5.5-inch handle with the skull crusher down there. So it's a big knife. Well, sort of big knife, 12.5 inches or so, something like that. And just nice and ooh. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. As you can tell from 6-7 months ago, I've learned a lot about knives in the last few months. And I'm really digging these fixed blades that I'm running across. So, yeah, I know this channel is usually about folders and stuff like that. But what the heck? Friday, Fun Knife Friday, Fixed Blade Friday, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to be showing a lot more fixed blades. Anyway, talk to you again soon. Stick around. I got a great slideshow. Maybe. Have I got a slideshow? You don't know either? Well, we'll find out. Skip out. And there's a Pat O'Neill. He was this Canadian commando, and he knew a boot knife. A boot knife. Boot knife. Bad Canadian humor, I guess. He knew about knives, let's put it that way. Another Fun Knife Friday in the books. Remember, if your knife's not fun, you're doing it wrong. Skip out.
If your knife's not fun, you're doing it wrong, and skip out are registered trademarks of Skip the Show Enterprises. This has been a Cat Production presentation. All rights reserved.